Alright, so I may be a part of the 0.1% of the population that has this opinion about Spider-Man's character in movies in the MCU, and that is that I kind of wish Spider-Man was given back to Sony. Now, don't get me wrong, the idea of Spider-Man being in the MCU is fucking awesome, and it is really cool to see my favorite superhero interact with some of my other favorite superheroes, and that wouldn't have happened if Spider-Man was exclusively Sony. However, when I sit and watch Spider-Man Homecoming and Spider-Man Far From Home, there's just something that feels off. Like, have you ever seen fight scenes like this in the MCU Spider-Man movies? Or what about web swinging scenes like this in the MCU Spider-Man movies? That's because when I think of scenes like this, all I can think of would be this. The closest we got to Spider-Man actually doing cool Spider-Man stuff would probably be in Infinity War, and that's it. In Sam Raimi's Spider-Man movies, and hell, even the Mark Webb movies, there was a certain feeling that you were watching a Spider-Man movie. You've got the camera following him as he swung by, and it gave you the feeling that you were swinging as well. And I hear the argument that this version of Spider-Man hasn't fully mastered the ability to swing, which if we were only talking about Homecoming, I would be more inclined to agree. But by the end of Far From Home, we got a full web swinging scene, and it still felt off. The camera is acting like Spider-Man is going to hit it while he's swinging around and tries to stay as far away from him as possible. We get so close to what appears to be a cool shot of him swinging around, and the camera either cuts or just stays stationary, or at best gives us very slight movements. In the previous films, the camera took full advantage of mobility. The camera moves with him as if he has the camera attached to him as he swings. Whenever any movie has a flying scene, you want to make the audience feel as if they are flying too. Now, moving on to fight scenes. When it comes to making a good fight scene, I believe it takes only like a couple aspects. One is obviously good choreography, that's just a given. But it needs to also have weight. You can't have characters seem like they're on the moon with how floaty they are, or that the punches have no impact. And Spider-Man never seems to really fight anyone in these movies. In Far From Home, he actually rarely throws a punch at people and uses something other than his webs in a fight. Like before, look at this fight scene. Or this one. And even this one. You feel the impact of each hit. These movies have some of the most creative fight choreography I've seen in film, utilizing the abilities of the character to its fullest potential. Don't get me wrong, I don't hate these movies. Homecoming was a pretty good Marvel film, and Far From Home is one of my favorite Marvel movies. But if I'm ranking all the Spider-Man movies alone, the list goes Spider-Man 2, Spider-Man 1, Into the Spider-Verse, Amazing Spider-Man 1, Far From Home, Spider-Man 3, Homecoming, and Amazing Spider-Man 2, because that movie just sucks. I judged Spider-Man 3 based on the 3.1 editor's cut I saw, because that made it a lot better.
I'm sorry. What was I thinking? Bad for the public image, right, Mr. Key to the City?
What did you do to her?
I did what you failed to do. Took you so long.
That was quite a performance today.
Well, it wasn't all a show. She did come to me.
Yeah, I got the story. I am really gonna enjoy this.
Now, onto the suit. It is one of my least favorite of the movies. The reason is because the suit doesn't fare well at convincing you that you aren't watching a CGI character on screen. And it's like, why does this scene look more real than this? And I actually have a theory as to why. Because Spider-Man 1 came out in 2002 and Civil War came out in 2016, the CGI should obviously be superior. But looking at the Sam Raimi suit, you can see that it actually has layers.
Layers!
The web pattern is thick and pokes out a little bit. The eyes have a certain texture pattern placed over them. The only thing in the newer suit that sticks out would be the spider on the back. Everything else looks like someone wearing body paint of the suit since everything looks so flat. Making it look more flat when they fully CGI a scene. I thought the Mysterio illusion scene was so fascinating, except I couldn't get past the point where I knew I was just watching a fully animated scene. Since the older suits had depth and layers to the design, it was more convincing since the detail was there. It was hard for me to believe it was Tom Holland under the Spider-Man suit. I saw Tobey Maguire under his suit, and I saw Andrew Garfield under his. Take that any way you want, folks. The only time I got close to being convinced would be seeing Tom Holland without the suit on, swinging around in the fight with Hydra Man, and that scene I really liked. Now, onto the story, which I have to be lenient on. I can't blame John Watts or the writers because I can imagine they're under very strict guidelines of what could and couldn't be put in, which is the biggest reason I would have preferred Spider-Man to go back to Sony. MCU Spider-Man stories are so small and are inevitably open to numerous potholes the cinematic universe can't escape. There are so many superb Spider-Man stories with Spider-Man that he alone could have a whole MCU worth of movies with his catalog of villains and stories. And if the character is tied into a larger universe with other characters, he's going to get overshadowed, and those fantastic stories won't be able to come to light, which when I think of Spider-Man movies I want to see, those are the ones that make the top of the list. So just to wrap things up, the MCU Spider-Man movies just don't feel like Spider-Man movies to me. They just feel like another one of the MCU superhero movies. Standard MCU films and Spider-Man films shouldn't fall under the same category. My personal best case scenario would be if Marvel wraps up the story they want to tell with the Spider-Man, and then he just goes back to Sony. Hell, I know it'd be confusing, but I'd love if Tom Holland stays as Spider-Man and gets to act in bigger Spider-Man stories. Or just make Spider-Man 4. I'm honestly okay with both outcomes.